We've been deep into our draft coverage here at Chicago Bulls Central, and on today's episode, we're going to look at some draft prospects that have increased their stock at the draft combine, but why the Chicago Bulls should still stay very far away from them. We're going to get into that, plus the mailbag, right after this.
You are now tuned in to Chicago Bulls Central, your number one place for all Chicago Bulls news and content.
What's going on, Bulls fans? Welcome to another episode of Chicago Bulls Central, your number one spot for everything Chicago Bulls related. I'm the host, Derek Hayes, but more importantly, you guys can follow the channel at Bulls Central Pod on every social media platform we happen to be on. With that being said, let's go ahead and get into this content. And so I want to talk about some of the players who have definitely boosted their stock in the draft combine, but why the Bulls should probably still stay far away from them. First up, I want to talk about, and that's Bronny James. He measured at 6'1", without shoes in there, but he did have a overall positive kind of draft combine. When you look at, he had some really good high IQ passes in that time, some flashy passes on top of that. His physical numbers weren't that bad. He actually shot the ball from three decently, right? I think going 4 of 10 in that case. And overall, like, it does seem like he showed more of ability off the dribble and things like that to be a pick and roll ball handler. And those things have really kind of helped his draft stock a little bit in this draft combine. But let's be clear here. With that said, the Bulls should still stay very far away from Bronny James. When it comes down to it, I get it, and I know some Bulls fans are saying this is the type of thing that the Bulls would do to bring LeBron James here. LeBron ain't taking no pay cut even to come play here in Chicago with his son. While, yes, he is a high IQ player, yes, he has some upside as a defender, especially in high school. You know, I doubt some of the way that looked in the NBA, but I mean, will look in the NBA, but at the end of the day, he's still a poor shooter. He didn't shoot the ball effectively, and do not let anything with the draft combine take you away from the negatives when it comes down to it. He doesn't have an amazing handle. He doesn't have the best passing ability, even though that's one of his strengths. At the end of the day, while in this draft combine, it has made people think that maybe he's more NBA ready than initially thought. The Bulls don't need a project, even if he does carry the last name of James, which is one of the best players in the history of the game of basketball. We don't need that problem. We don't need that headache. And despite the things that Bronny James has showed at this draft combine, I would love to see the Bulls stay very far away from Bronny James in this draft. So, listen, the college numbers we already know. They are what they are. But outside of that, I just don't trust it. And with the Bulls at the 11th pick, it'd be different if we're talking about second round, maybe even into the first round. I don't want the Bulls to take a chance on a player that just a month ago people were saying wasn't an NBA prospect at all. Do not allow the draft combine to confuse you and make you think that Bronny James is going to be something more than what he's probably going to be at the NBA level. Now, another player that I want to talk about in this as well is Reed Sheppard. Now, don't get me wrong. Reed is not as bad as Bronny James, where it doesn't look like he's going to be an NBA player at all. He's actually done a lot as far as like dealing with the physicality better than what people thought he was going to. He's a 6'3" combo guard with a 42-inch max vertical jump, which is marking one of the best numbers. It ties actually for the best number in the draft combine when it comes down to it. Listen, Reed Sheppard is a solid player, and he's one that, you know, it's probably going to be taken before the Bulls are even off the board, but it's not a need by the Chicago Bulls, and that's what it comes down to it. Yes, he has some explosive athleticism. Yes, he's a playmaker. Yes, he has a great feel for the game, and he got that dog in him, absolutely. And at 20 years old, 187 pounds, his off-ball defense is really solid on top of that. But when it comes down to it, I just don't see him being a player that's there anyway when the Chicago Bulls draft. Now, he's not somebody who I would say that if he fell there to number 11 and the Bulls took him, I make some questions about what does that mean for what the Bulls are going to do with the rest of their roster. But ultimately, I think when it comes down to it, you're looking at Reed Sheppard being off the board long before the Bulls pick. And some Bulls fans, you know, I get it to have some hopes, but he's done a great job at really increasing his draft stock, and I like him. I like him a lot, but he's not somebody who's going to be there on the board when the Chicago Bulls pick at all. And then the next player that I'm going to talk about is a player that I know that it's really polarizing. And I think it goes back to some of those things that people look at with players, and they just look at what somebody brings compared to what like Vooch lacks, and that's Zach Edey. Zach Edey's had a really good draft combine. Can't take away from that. He measured better athletically than what me and a lot of other people gave him credit or thought that he was going to do coming into this league. But Zach Edey is still somebody that has a slow foot speed. I don't care what he ran in the straight line. The decision making on pick and rolls is not there. Huge. Great size, right? 7'3", barefoot. He has that 17 wingspan. The dude is size-wise, not that many people can mess with him. But when it comes down to him, right, outside of what he did I already listed him as a player that did tremendous. Over on NBA Central, he did tremendous work for himself when it came down to, in that NCAA tournament of opening a lot of eyes. He was projected to be a low-end second-round pick before that. He worked himself up to people now saying he could be a first-round pick, and now there are some draft analysts that do think that he could go in the lottery. And I get it. When you look at the things that Zach Edey does well, the interior game, all those things, his size is going to be something that he's going to have NBA size right away. Also, he just understands his game. Yes, he's a limited player as far as his ability to stretch the floor, things like that, but he has high IQ-wise, very high IQ. You can't take that away from him. And also, if you get him the ball around the rim, he has enough touch that he's going to finish pretty well at times. But again, you got to worry about the lack of defender, right? He's going to be an extremely limited defender if he's not around the basket. Around the basket, he may be cool at. He in pick and pops, he's going to be barbecue chicken. Pick and rolls, maybe at times he can use his length as well. But those pick and pops, he does not attack those at all at any type of speed, even with his length. And when it comes down to it as well, that, the way that he played and the way that he thrived in college is just those opportunities aren't going to be there for him. And outside of the perimeter game, because not every center has to have a perimeter game, the fact of the matter is that the free throw shooting percentage, it's cool, right? It's cool there. But at the end of the day, he has no ability to create really a jump shot at all. And he can't play in a high-tempo game. And specifically for what the Chicago Bulls do need, and the way that this current roster, now if they change the roster, maybe that's different, but the way that this current roster is going and with the players that they've drafted and things like that, this is a team that wants to play fast. This is a team that wants to get out in transition. This is a team that's better when they do have those opportunities. And unfortunately, he hasn't brought enough of that. He has not brought enough of that to where you can look at it, in my opinion, and say he's going to be able to thrive in that role at any type. And if anybody says the Bulls should slow the ball then down to be able to play with Zach Edey, you're missing the forest through the trees at that point. You're trying to bake on narrative and not necessarily fact. Zach Edey, I will give him credit. He is possibly going to be a player that maybe is able to stick around maybe a little bit longer than what I thought. But he's still going to be an extremely limited player that I just don't want the Bulls to take at number 11. I think that we'd be remiss and we end up hating it if the Bulls took this guy at number 11, but maybe I'm wrong there. Now, a guy that I think has upped his draft stock as well in the combine is A.J. Johnson. This is a guy who played over in the NBL over there. This is a guy who has tremendous upside. You look at the 10 assists that he did in 48 minutes, some things like that. He already has flashed some really good court vision and stuff like that. This is a guy who I like. But again, because of the late rise and things like that, I don't know if I necessarily would like to see him, be drafted by the Chicago Bulls. And I don't think that that's the case either way. He's an extremely young guy. I think he's the son of Amir Johnson, I believe. And plus he's a 6'6" combo guard. And that's not really a role that the Bulls are going to look for, I think. But we'll end up seeing what happens down to that. I do think that he is a guy that is on some draft boards for some teams, but I don't really see him filling out a role for the Chicago Bulls on this team specifically. But maybe I'm incorrect on that. But you guys can let me know what you guys think on these guys down below. Who else has stood out to you looking at these draft combine numbers? Let me know all that down below. Next up, though, it's time to get into the mailbag. You guys already know that Saturdays are mailbag days here at Chicago Bulls Central. We're going to get into this first voicemail. And this first one, this one is from Vaughn.
What's up, Hayes? This is Vaughn. And I just saw this draft lottery. Ain't no way. Ain't no fucking way. I mean, we beat the Atlanta Hawks, get the 11th pick, and just like that, the Hawks get that 10th pick and move all the way up into the top four and get the number 1 pick. It's just unbelievable. Like I'm usually not this hurt by something that's like uncontrollable like this, but goddamn. Like, I don't know what it is. I don't know if the league hate us. I don't know if the basketball guys hate us. Ain't nobody coming through that door to save us. It's just constant hell. And we just continue to get slapped in the face. It's just terrible. It's just terrible. Like, this sucks. It really does. I don't even know what else to say.
All right, so yeah, Atlanta getting the number one overall pick. Don't get me wrong. Like I was frustrated initially by it as well. But ultimately it comes down to this: the Bulls in this type of draft, right? And don't get me wrong, well, who you can get at the number one is very different than what you get. Because I think Sarr would be a player that I would be that you take there and you for the Bulls and you keep it moving, right? But I think ultimately, like the Bulls just have to get this draft process right. This is a draft where the talent is really close. You got to try to find the guy that fits your system that you think has the most upside. There's some really good guys like Khalil Ware, Kyle Filipowski. I know Khalil Ware. You know, some people have those motor concerns with Khalil Ware, and things like that, which are valid, right? Because we've seen players that lack the motor before. But I think that's the biggest thing that I take away from all of this is I just want the Bulls to make sure in whatever they do and however they evaluate these players or whatever else, just get it right. Just get it right. That's what I would love to see from this team. And there's a possibility that even at number 11, you can get you a guy that is really going to help change the outlook of your team. And so, and be able to contribute now. So I get it that people kind of overstate now the whole, this is a weak draft thing. This is a weak draft as far as star level talent. This isn't a weak draft as far as good talent that can definitely help your team, that could be starters for years and years to come. And there are still some players that could potentially turn into stars in this draft. I just hope that the Bulls end up getting the right job. And, you know, the frustration with the Bulls and where they are, the being tied to this roster and things like that, you know, you don't have to. And I think some Bulls fans look at it and say, or think that you're saying go full rebuild if you say that move off of them. And that's not what you're saying. But you gotta prioritize, to me, that 2025 pick. You gotta try to get a guy that's your next really reasonable and realistic chance to try to get a franchise changing player for yourself. And hopefully the Bulls are also looking and reviewing that. I can't guarantee it. This is Arturas Karnisovas that we're talking about, and we'll see what it ends up being. We'll see. All right, let's get into this next voicemail. This one's from the 843.
Yeah, good afternoon, Bro Hayes. Love your show. I'm in the car right now, and I want to share some thoughts about our favorite team, of course, the Bulls. Number one, with the upcoming draft, I really believe that we have to prioritize length and rim protection. I think we missed the boat. I'm not to bring this up, but to my opinion, which doesn't count for much, but I think we missed the boat with Walter Kessler in that draft. So this time we really need to prioritize length and rim protection. And the second thing I want to speak of, I really believe that the Zach LaVine era and also DeMar DeRozan era has run its course. There are many times I've enjoyed these players. I mean, they've given me a lot of joy watching them play, but it's time to move on because we have to prioritize more two-way players who play on both sides of the ball. And also we have to position ourselves for the upcoming draft of next year, 25, because that's a great class coming out. I believe this organization has been unwilling to take a few steps backward to take a few steps forward. But I think that is something that they have to realize that you have to take a few steps back because, you know, we're going nowhere with Zach, DeMar, and one-way players who play one side of the ball. I would love to see the Bulls, from a culture vantage point, I would love to see them retain Alex Caruso because he's such a great example of what players should be in the NBA. And also, I wouldn't mind seeing Devontae Green return as well. But right now, we really have to position ourselves for the 2025 draft and really not just stay stuck with where we are now. So anyway, those are my thoughts. Oh, and the other thing, the center from Indiana, I think his last name is Ware. I viewed his highlights the other day, and he's a great rim protector, and also I like the fact that he has an outside game to go along with that. And I don't know if Donovan Clingan is going to be there at 11. I don't know if he's going to be there at all. But anyway, if we don't draft a center, the player from Tennessee, you know that I'm referring to.
I really agree with you. The length, rim protection are all things that I would love to see the Bulls prioritize here. There are some really good centers that can be starters for you for a long time and power forwards too. That's kind of, this draft is best at the wings and at the big man position. And I hope that that's where the Bulls prioritize as well. You know, we can't guarantee it with having the front office that we have, But I really hope that that's the way that they're looking at this also, and just putting us in the right situation. Just get the right guy, right? Now, as far as time to move on from DeMar and Zach, if you've been watching the show for a while, you know that I'm of the mindset that I'd be fine keeping DeMar, but at the right number, right? And, at the end of the day, the thing that I always say is that DeMar isn't up in the Bulls ceiling that much. I get it that why people love DeMar, and I get why people have an affinity for DeMar DeRozan, and even just because he's a one-sided player or anything like that, because, yeah, he's not a two-way player, but that's fine. I think that's the way that the NBA are going. You do want two-way players there, but you still need people who can put the ball in the hoop, right? But I think ultimately, when it comes down to it, if you hold on to DeMar, and let's just say the Bulls next year, they get up to the 9th seed, right? And they have the number 12 pick. That ends up going to the Spurs, and we don't make it out the play-in again. Are you saying that having DeMar DeRozan on this team and getting another play-in appearance is worth missing out on an opportunity in probably the deepest draft that we're going to have in 2025 in the next 3 to 4 years after that? So, that's just kind of my mindset on it, but we'll see. I do agree with you as far as retaining Caruso. If he wants to extend here, I think you keep him here because of what he means for the present and the future of this team. He is the type of guy that sets a tone for your team. And I, for one, can't be mad at that personally. I can't be mad at it, and I would not be mad if that's the route that the Bulls go either, and retaining Alex Caruso because he's just that type of guy. He's a Chicago Bulls type player, and I think you keep guys around like that. But again, if you can get those 2 first-round picks, or if you have a guy on your board after your own pick this year, and you look, or even at the trade deadline, if you can get a end of the round first-round pick in next year's draft, how deep that draft is, they kind of do that as well. So I think it's the Bulls got to weigh their options and just make the best choice for the present and the future of the team, and we'll see where that ends up getting us. All right, let's get into this last voicemail for today. This one's from Martin.
Hey, what up, Hayes? Love the show. I'm Martin. So, yeah, there's some truth to what Josh Hart said, but, man, I got to ask, though, what have the Knicks done? Aside from the last 2 years, they've been the joke of the NBA for like 2 decades, man. The Bulls have won more playoff series. They've had more winning seasons. They've made the playoffs more often, man. I don't know what he's talking about, dude. Yeah, sure, they're pretty decent lately, but unless they win it all, they can eat a dick. And the Knicks have been sucking despite spending way more on salary than the Bulls. They've been sucking ass. All right, take care, man. See you.
I get what you're saying on the Knicks, right? But it's not about, they sucked for a decade. But guess what? They came out of that. The difference between the Bulls and the Knicks the Bulls are going down. Yeah, and I think people are kind of misstating. Josh Hart didn't say that to say that the Knicks are all of a sudden the picture-perfect example of a big market team. He was just saying, hey, look at the Bulls, for example. They are a big market. What have they done? Yeah, the Knicks ain't done much, but they've done more than the Bulls. That's it. They've done more than the Bulls, and they have a better place right now. If you're judging the futures of the team, you'd be crazy, and you're too much of a – listen, I hate the Knicks. But you would be too much of a homer if you sat there and said that the Knicks right now don't have a brighter future than the Chicago Bulls. They do. Are they going to win a title this year? Doesn't seem likely. But if you had to bet on the foundation of a team and a team making the necessary moves, the fact that the front office has been aggressive since getting Jalen Brunson, the fact that the front office hasn't just rested on having players around them, they've been aggressive at going out and getting players that fit around Jalen Brunson and fit Tom Thibodeau's play style. Those are the type of things that it gives your franchise more of a chance than what the Bulls have been doing is just spinning their wheels. Now, could the Bulls change that this season with actually being aggressive? Yeah, it's not out of the realm of possibility to catch up to where the Knicks are, but that's the point that was made. People are missing the forest for the trees in this case. It's not saying that the Knicks have been this picture-perfect example of the way a franchise should be ran for the last decade, but guess what? They went out and got a player, and they've been aggressive at building around that. And they were aggressive in going out and getting that. Anybody who tries to say that they were just lucky in getting Jalen Brunson, I'm sorry, you're stupid. They weren't just lucky. They targeted Jalen Brunson. They believed that Jalen Brunson could be something based off the flashes that he showed in Dallas, and it ended up paying off. Right? You got to be aggressive in getting those chances. And the fact that they were even players in a free agent market, the Bulls haven't really been that. So those are the type of things that people kind of look at. And I think that Josh Hart was speaking to wasn't to say that the Knicks are all of a sudden this picture-perfect example. That wasn't the question that was presented to him. I think people have now taken that to mean something different than what was actually presented there. The Knicks are in a far better place right now than where the Chicago Bulls are. It's kind of hard to not look at that, in my opinion. But you guys can let me know what you guys think down below, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. Make sure you guys are following the show at Bull Central Pod. You can send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns. BullCentralPod@gmail.com. Lastly, if you want to leave a text message and our voicemail for the mailbag, the number to do so, 773-270-2799. We are the number one spot for everything Chicago Bulls related, thanks to you guys. And like I like to end every episode on, go Bulls. Love you guys. See red if you can, y'all. Peace.
This has been a presentation of the Break Media.